trash. Ryan Rapoff? He already knew he was standing up for our common name. Guilty, guilty. Shanita Baker? Birds of a feather flocking together. What about Lee LaGrange? And Mike Bates. Did I say Mike Bates yet? Yes, sir. All right, come on up. Let's get a good picture of these usual suspects. All right, let's see. Let's start with Mark Lee. Mark, step forward, sir. How we doing, Mark?
We'll find out, won't we?
I hear things are pretty cool till there's a snake in your house. You have a snake in your house recently?
Well, I have before.
And you took care of that snake all by yourself, didn't you?
No.
No, not at all.
No.
Who took care of it for you?
I called my wife. Well, my wife called me. She said, there's a snake in the house. And I said, well, call an exterminator, call my father, or call a realtor, but don't call me until it's gone.
I heard you left the scene of the snake. You left the house until it was all taken care of.
I did.
That wasn't the end of the snake, was it? Later on, she asked you to take out the garbage, and what was on the garbage can? Was there a... Go ahead.
Am I under subpoena?
Yes, you are, but I hear you got out of it because you cooked her a nice meal. I hear you're pretty good with the old cooking.
I can cook it.
I hear you're the old Julia Childs of Wilson County.
I don't cook snake.
You might want to start thinking about that. There's your ticket. You got 30 days to ignore it.
Thank you.
There's actually some directions on the bottom there if you want to get out of that ticket. Les Turner, where's Les?
He's out taking a phone call.
He's on the land. Phone call.
Yeah.
He's on the land. We'll come back around. Laura Perry? How you doing, Laura Perry? I hear you like to say this phrase, TRID does not stand for...
Oh, the reason I drank.
How does that come up?
Well, I taught a class across the state, and I played along with TRID as kind of a joke, like Mark Rosser has his little definitions, and I said things like, TRID doesn't stand for Tennessee Realtors in Distress.
I got you. So you're kind of an acronym of them.
Yes.
You know what Mayberry RFD stands for?
No.
Go look it up. All right.
Here's Wes Turner.
Talking on a cell phone outside the cell. That's sneaky. Jill, how you doing there? I hear you got more charm than you know what to do with. Well, you know, I got my sources. I hear weird things happen to other people when you're around them, but not to you. Back to you. Watch out, I'm standing right next to you. Shanita? Come on down here, Shanita. How you doing? You were doing pretty good a minute ago, weren't you? We got you for an impersonation. You're an impersonator, impersonating a superhero. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and you're done with it. Like you got to. And I heard you thought about becoming a nun when you were 18 years old. Is that true?
Uh-oh.
There's very few people that know that. Must be alone here in this one. All right, who we got left over here? Ryan, how do you say it? Did I say it right? Rapoff? Rapoff. You said it right. It's a cool name. I never heard that one before. Is that a Tennessee name?
No, it's not.
It sounds like French. What is that?
It's German.
Oh, really? That makes sense with your ticket here. Got here a ticket for extortion. Asking everybody for money. walking down the hall getting ready to conduct a closing, and you walk right behind them pretending to call the company's errors in emission carrier and asking for a higher increase in coverage.
That could have been me.
Probably any day. Routine behavior for you. We got Lee McGrace, right? That's a cool name. What's the background on that, McGrace? Very good. I like it. Yeah, but I guess you were just in a big old mess recently. Yeah. You invented an entire crime scene so somebody could broadside your car so you get a new red shiny truck. That sound like you?
Sounds like me, actually.
Somebody on video, you heard that? I can hear it, please. I can't remember. Wow. So it was you.
It was me.
So you were going home and got broadsided by
I was going back to the office for closing.
somebody broadsided you, a criminal.
Yes.
So did they go dent your car?
No, he did my car in.
But that was okay with you, wasn't it?
Well, no.
You got a new red shiny truck. But you orchestrated that whole thing just to get your truck. You got it on video. Really, you called the guy over like this, you slowed down, you looked at it, took a little picture. Let's rewind the tape and look at it. All right, let's see if we got this. Oh yeah, okay, so it was a vehicle thing, I just got everything mixed up. So here you were out on a single trip with the regional manager, you ran over something in the road, damaged a couple of tires. Had to have the car towed, and then all of a sudden you had to bum around to the ATM machine to get some money. Which is a common thing for you. I hear you sometimes your wallet disappears when the food bill comes out. You had to run through the pouring rain to get the towing company involved. Huh? That's so confusing, I barely understood it myself. I thought round of applause for all of us.
Hey, Barb, I want to know if Thelma Lou ever found out about Juanita.
Keep it on the DL, would you?
All right.
I'm gonna look at discount down to that. Sweet Juanita. Head down there with me. That's right. All right. Well, as you can tell, I'm a big Andy Griffith Show fan. How many other folks enjoyed the Andy Griffith Show? Oh, yeah. That was the show when I was growing up. Even today, I like to share that show with my kids and watch them with that. And when my parents come over, we get up the old Andy Griffith Show to watch it. And one thing I liked about the Andy Griffith Show, whether I knew it or not when I was little, is they always had a lesson they learned on the way to having some fun. You know, they'd always have some kind of crazy thing happen in Mayberry, but they learned a little side lesson from it. So a few years ago, I thought I'd combine my two loves of doing comedy and speaking and combine that with my love of Andy Griffith Show. So I could put together some fun programs people could actually stay awake during, learn a few things, and laugh a little bit. Because I know sometimes the day gets long and you sit here for a while learning different things. So we're going to talk about a few different things today. First thing we're going to talk about is time management. And sometimes our day gets away from us, doesn't it? So can I hear you say, nip it in the bud? All right. We're going to talk about eliminating distractions. How many folks have too many distractions in their day-to-day life? Oh, my goodness. We all do. And if you don't have a distraction, you might be the distraction, right? So we're going to talk about that. Can I hear you say, don't be a goober? All right. And then we're going to talk about kind of just getting our whole day together, having a plan, being more effective with what we set out to do every day. Can I hear you guys say, keep your bullet in your pocket? All right. And somebody always asks, so I got to keep it right there in case you want to know. So let's start talking about eliminating distractions a little bit. How many dollars a day do you think we missed out in the United States just by not being fully productive at work? It's billions. How many billions do you think it is? It's higher than 50 billion? Higher than 100 billion? Not quite a trillion. We'll get there one day, I'm sure. $650 billion a year we're missing out on just because we're not fully focused at work. The work is right there that we can get done if we were not distracted. So that's a big, big chunk of money. When I think about distractions on the Andy Griffith Show, I think about one guy in particular that usually carried a bag of rocks around with me. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Ernest T. Yeah. Remember what he would say? It's me, it's me. It's Ernest T, right. And he would come in town, he'd throw some rocks through the courthouse window, and no matter what Andy and Barney were trying to do, usually it wasn't much, but whatever they were doing, they got distracted, had to focus on Ernest T and take care of that fire before they get back to their work. We all have Ernest T's in our day at work, right? Every company and every organization is a little bit different, but what are some common distractions you guys have throughout your work day? Email can be a distraction for sure. What else? Telephone. What else? A bag closing. Yeah, that can when a fire happens like that, it's all hands on, right? What else? Realtor emergencies. Give me an example just from my own knowledge. What's a good realtor emergency? There's not a good one. Okay. Gotcha. Lots of kinds of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of distractions throughout the country. Some of the biggest ones in the most recent studies, one was a long lunch break, which, man, if you're lucky enough to have a lunch break, take it, right? How many people are working through lunch pretty much all the time, right? So I don't think that's a big one, but it came up on every different study. The one thing you don't want to do is like go out to lunch, get a fish sandwich, and bring that back and heat it up in the microwave near the office, because that's going to affect everybody else's day the rest of the afternoon for sure. We just had one of the biggest distractions of the year. Anybody know what that would have been? A little basketball? Yeah. Do you know how many billions of dollars they think are lost during that tournament? 3.5 billion in just that 2.5-week period, basically, there from people. Even CBS knows this, right? Anybody download the CBS app on top of their desktop? You can be watching a ball game, but if your boss walks by, you push a button and it turns into a spreadsheet. So they're enabling people to be distracted at work. Nobody said flirting at work. That was a top 10 list there, flirting, so we're all not tempted by the people sitting around us. That's good. All kinds of different distractions. But the big thing was social media distractions overall. They estimate that, I think it was 63 billion of the 650 billion was due just to people watching videos at work or checking their Facebook or logging on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And if you think about that, that number is going to get bigger a lot quicker. That's almost 10% at 650 billion right now. And most of those social networks have been around less than 8 years. So just think about how that's going to keep impeding our progress and focus at work. It's going to be a lot of trouble. The big three social networks are YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And good news is they're always trying to acquire each other. They're always trying to get better value for their shareholders and stuff. So if those three combine, they're going to name the website youtwitface.com. And you can log in there. And well, that'd be handy, wouldn't it? So maybe one day they'll get that done. But there's just so many different distractions. Now, the good news is if you're 55 or older, or you work with people 55 and older, they tend to use all these things less, social networks and all these apps and things. Anybody want to take a guess at why that might be? They don't know how. All right. That's true. Like in a lot of studies, they show that age group starts to tap out. They really don't care. I'm 48, and sometimes I can't even read the screen, so I got to get a bigger phone or not do these apps. But I thought that was kind of mean when they said that. It's not that you can't figure it out. It's that you don't care, right? You had a life. You don't need to tweet it out every moment of today's life to prove you have one. People today have to tweet to prove they're alive, don't they? I mean, look at our president. He can't go 30 minutes without yelling at somebody. I was in San Antonio, Texas at a hotel, and in the hotel, the stairwell, the fire escape, if you wanted to take that, it said, "Please exit building before tweeting about the fire." That was a real thing. And I thought, how many times has this happened? I need to get a room down on the first floor if this hotel keeps catching on fire like this. But that's true, people are all about it. Now, 55 and up, I did some research on my own, and about 2 years ago, we got my dad like the last of the clamshell flip phones. Like he wanted a cell phone. He's a tobacco farmer in Kentucky, and we wanted him to have one just so we could check in on him when it's 100 degrees out there and he's taking care of stuff, housing tobacco. So he got that little clamshell phone, and 2 days later, he calls me up. He says, I'm about to fire off an email off of this thing. Keep an eye out for it. Well, I'm like, well, first off, I was a little bit impressed that my dad figured out how to get, even though we didn't want him to get the email on there, he found a way to break on through to the other side, right? So I go log into my computer, and there's an email, but it's not coming directly from my dad. It's asking me if I would like to follow him on Twitter. He got on Twitter on this little bitty phone. So I was a little concerned because my dad probably doesn't need to be on Twitter, you know? We all know dads like that, or we might have. So I logged on to see if he had put out any tweets in the 2 days that he had the phone. And boy, he had been busy. 116 tweets in 48 hours. All capital letters. No followers. Nobody. I know. I'm like, he's just tweeting in the breeze. That's all he's doing. He's just hollering in the wind. So part of me is a little excited because my dad's an old, quiet farm guy. Y'all know people like that. Might say 10 words a week if you get him riled up about something. I thought maybe he's like Mark Twain all these years. 116 nuggets of wisdom in 2 days? Well, that was optimistic because I started scrolling down through it, and I got about 10 deep, and I realized it's not even 116 different thoughts. It's just one big story. 116-piece story that I'm reading from the end way back down to the beginning to figure it out. Well, it gets even worse. The whole story was about birds because my dad thought Twitter was a bird-watching, updating website. Yeah. If you want to follow my dad on Twitter, please do. He's only got 2 followers. It's me and the Audubon Society. They think he's up to something. But you can find him at NutHatcher401261853, which is also his Social Security number. So, if you want to log him out, the password is password. I'm pretty sure. So true story. That's my gene pool. I'm lucky I'm walking upright, you know. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're working with people 55 or younger, they're going to be apt to use that stuff a lot more. In fact, they've got apps we don't even know about because as soon as we walk by, they can make them just disappear from their screen, you know. I mean, that's what all Snapchat's about from what I understand. You do something and it's not there anymore, you know. My son's 11, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday a couple weeks ago. He said, I think I need to get me an iPad Air 64 gigabytes with a built-in Wi-Fi plan. I'm like, I don't think you need to get that. I said, you're 11, you know, you should just chill out a little bit. He said, how about an iPhone? I'm like, dude, seriously, when I was growing up, I would have got a whooping just for asking. Yeah? You need to go outside and get you a stick. Get you a wireless stick, right? Yeah, 64 hickory nuts or something like that. So he did. He went outside, got a stick. 5 minutes later, poked himself in the face. We had to get him an eye patch. Yeah. Right on his eyeball. Anyway, but there's so many distractions. We need to dial it back. Now, it's unreasonable for me to ask you to do something I can't do. I can't not look at Facebook all day long, but here's what I can tell you that will save you some time and increase your productivity, is if you wait till later in the day, everybody else who goes through those posts and likes them or shares them or whatever, that will make it appear higher in your feed if you log on around 7, 8 o'clock at night. They've done all the checking for you to see if anything was interesting at all. And so they're going to show you who had the best lunch, basically, if you're on Facebook, right? That's all people are doing. So the longer you can wait, the easier it is to look at stuff and you realize how little that you're really looking at each day. A couple companies that I've spoke to, they did a program where you could look at your Facebook or your Twitter account every 5 minutes, or every hour for 5 minutes. And to do that, you had to come back and tell everybody in the office what was the most important thing you saw when you looked. And people were so embarrassed by coming back and saying, well, I guess, you know, there was just nothing. So they realized they didn't need to check it that much. Kind of broke the habit a little bit. And so they were able to get back on track and get a little bit more of their day back. That 650 billion is a big number, right? And we're all sharing in that across the board. So that's one way you can do it. if there's stuff that you really like, the main thing is not to have it coming into your work email. Sometimes stuff finds its way in there, and you got to weed that out, block it. Set up an email that you don't like. Like I have one for all the alerts and stuff, and it's one that I don't even save the password to on my phone or my computer. If I want to look at it, I have to type it in. And just knowing that I have to do that twice a day, I don't even check it, just because it's like that's more work than I want to put up with. When you have everything auto-saved, it's so easy to click, it kind of takes over. So those are a few different things you can think about as far as getting your day back productivity-wise. And the numbers are pretty staggering. Every 12 minutes, the average worker is interrupted. So does that sound about right? Yeah. Here's the tricky part of that stat. Every time a worker's interrupted, it takes them 5 minutes to get back on track. Does that make sense too? Like you got to go back into the file or make the phone call or get back into the email. So you're losing time right and left. It's just too much. 28% of our day is interrupted. So it's finding time to do those things and just squirreling away to those little parts of your day and not let it take over everything else. Let's talk about time management for a little bit. How many folks just don't have enough time in the day to get everything done? It's brutal, isn't it? It's amazing how much of our day is distracted, for one. Then other things come up that are kind of sometimes our own faults, Some studies show that for every minute you spend in planning, you save 10 minutes in execution. But a lot of us don't like to plan because we're like, that's downtime. I should be doing something. Planning isn't doing something. But when you put that time in up front, it saves you the time on the back end. When I first got married, my wife wanted to set up a budget. I didn't want any part of that. But she talked me into it, and the great thing is now, first couple months, 3 months, it took us a while to adjust, then we had kids, time to adjust to that. But each month, within 5 minutes, we got that budget straightened out for the month. And we started budgeting for vacations, which we never did before. We just see if we had any money left at the end of the year to plan something. But she had it figured out, so we were putting money away every week towards a little vacation. Then I wasn't stressed out on vacation about spending money I didn't think I had in the first place, It's all about making those little changes as you go through things. What are some things that take away from your day-to-day stuff as far as planning? Is there some major projects you wish you had more time to plan? Let me ask you this way. Does anybody do like an end-of-the-month report? A few of you. Do you have anybody helping you with the end-of-the-month report, or is it just you? Have you started to train anybody else to help you at the end of the month report? That's the way to do it right there. Back in the day, I had an office job for a little while, and they would always try to train us on the end of the month report on the 29th or 30th of the month. While the fire is in full bloom, right? And we never absorbed it, so every month we had to go back and try to relearn it, and it took them like a year to figure out. Train us on that stuff on the first, second, or third, when it's still fresh in their minds, but it's not an emergency anymore, Everybody here might be the person in the office that only knows how to do something. Does anybody, I won't ask you to raise your hands, but if you think you're the person at the office that only knows how to do this one particular thing, and if you didn't show up, it wouldn't get done, you're the person that immediately should start finding somebody to train to help you out. Because when you're gone, everybody suffers when you're in your absence. And, for people that own a company, if you have to do everything, you really don't own a company at all. It owns you, right? It's not something you can pass on or sell or exit until you have a strategy and everything delegated. And that's one thing I liked about the Andy Griffith Show. Whenever something big happened, Andy was out of town, right? Whenever gold was coming through town or convicts escaped from prison, it was just Barney left. And it got so bad he had to deputize who? Otis, the town drunk, right? The old farmer that could barely hold the pitchfork, Floyd. I mean, come on, this isn't good. So you want to find people that are qualified to help you out when you delegate authority, and people that are actually interested in doing it. A lot of studies show that if you have a pool of 10 people that might be able to help you and you might be able to delegate authority to somebody in that 10, asking for a volunteer from that group, having somebody step forward, will increase the chance they'll actually get the job done. One of my favorite episodes of the Andy Griffith Show, Andy said to Barney that you can delegate authority, but the responsibility, that's still on you. And when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on that, but basically what he's saying is even though you delegate it to somebody else, if it doesn't get done, it's coming back to you. How many folks have ever delegated something and it came back worse than if you'd rushed through it, right? So that happens. So you got to find somebody that's trustworthy, but you also have to take some time to show them how to do it and walk them through it. If it's something you've never done before, you got to find somebody that's done it before and ask them what was their biggest obstacle so you can build in time for those obstacles and for those hang-ups, because it's going to happen to you probably as well. So it's all about kind of getting that teamwork thing going, getting some people that want to volunteer to help you out, and then delegating when it's not an emergency. And when I think about that in the past 10 years in our country, There was one event, the Miracle on the Hudson, Captain Sullinger, you know that guy, right? Here was a guy that every time he took off from every airport, just by his training, he already knew 3 options to land the plane from the airport he's taken off from and every place in between in case something's going wrong. And he just had that built in as a systems check for him. And he taught the other co-pilots how to do that, and that was part of their nature. And as soon as that plane took off that day and they hit those birds, he knew pretty quickly that his best option was about 5 minutes too far down the way. Couldn't get to it, so his only other option was landing it on the Hudson. And he knew from the weather reports it was going to be fairly calm and it'd probably be okay. And I didn't know this till watching the movie. One of his hobbies was what? You guys know? Hang gliding. So he basically hang glided? How would you say that? He took his hang gliding knowledge and just let that thing settle down on the Hudson. But he was prepared for it. Every time he took off, that was the first time he ever had to do it in all those years. Approaching retirement, he finally put that into place. When I think about the airline industry and somebody that didn't do well with this whole thing, there's a guy named Steven Slater. He was a steward on JetBlue. And just kind of ring a bell? See you later, Slater, they called him. Yeah. He was on a flight. They were landing in Pittsburgh. And sometime at some point on that flight, somebody got under his skin. And instead of just kind of dealing with it, and then when everybody got off the plane, kind of venting to his coworkers, he got on the microphone as the plane landed and called those people out. Told everybody what rows they were in, what seats they were in, and kind of cussed them out over the microphone. Then when the plane landed, he grabbed a couple of Jack Daniels, the little ones, right? He drank them and hit the emergency chute over the exit. Yeah. And as he's sliding down the little slide, he's like, I'll see you later. Yeah. Now there's a guy who had no plan, right? And whose stress do you think was bigger, Captain Sullinger or see you later Slater? I mean, it's just the juxtaposition that drives me crazy. Like, here's a guy, all he had to do is wait for people to get off the plane, and he could have, like, shook it off, you know, but he had to get in their face and call them out on it. Captain Sullinger, under control the whole way. I actually looked up this see you later Slater guy on the internet, and he's in anger management classes still after 2 years. And they won't let him get out of it until he'll actually teach it. And every time he's tried to teach it, he's flipped out on somebody. Yeah. So it's just, there's so many things in our life like that, you know. Planning's super important, because if you don't plan, you just react to what goes on around you, you know. I don't like to pick on my parents too much, but they've given me a lot of good examples. And I'll pick on myself here in a minute. But, you know, during the presidential campaign, and even just shortly after the inauguration, my parents, all they do is they watch the news and the Weather Channel. Occasionally the Cooking Network, too. Like, if you walk through my parents' house, you would think a hamburger was going to rob somebody during a tornado. That's basically what's going on. And so I called up my mom one day. I said, what are you guys up to? She goes, oh, we're having a home security system installed today. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They're in the same little farmhouse on a tobacco farm in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. They've been there since 1964. I said, what do you think? People are going to break in and remodel when you're not looking? I mean, my parents' house is nice, but if they broke in, they would think they got inside a 70s museum by accident. They'd knock down the door and trip over the beanbag chair. They'd hit the couch and slide off the plastic that came with the couch. They might hit the wall, big orange picture made out of yarn and nails would come right down. My dad would be throwing pet rocks. Stay down, stay down. I'll tweet this later, hold still, you know. I said, Mom, even if they broke in your house, they couldn't take your stereo. They had to bring 8 more guys in a pickup truck and a forklift. So, y'all remember that big old stereo growing up? 6 foot wide, hi-fi. Looked like wood made out of plastic and heavier than concrete, right? And what did you have, green or red or gold? Velour speakers, 3 feet apart. I said, Mom, look at that stereo right now. If somebody breaks in, all you got to do, hide in that middle compartment and wait for them to go away. Pop out with an Oak Ridge Boys 8-track tape. Take that, you know. Giddy up, a bop, a bow, bow. I shouldn't make fun of that stereo. It's going to be mine one day. It probably will be mine one day. My parents are downsizing right now. Y'all been through that yet? Yeah, that's a nice term, isn't it? Really, they're just giving me stuff they should have thrown away 40 years ago. They tried to give me a computer they found in the attic, a Commodore 64. You know what I'm talking about? What was that, 1979, 80 when that came out? I remember my older brother got that out of a Sears catalog. Remember those Sears catalogs? And about 3 weeks after he got it, he knew how to reprogram it. He just knew how to do that, you know. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't even know we had it still. But I took it, brought it down here to Tennessee, and gave it a proper disposal, you know. My mom calls me up like 20 minutes later. She's like, have you got that thing running yet? Well, yeah, we got Windows 57 on there so far. Can't even catch a virus. It gets a sniffle and shuts right on down. Screensaver's a piece of duct tape. It's horrible. But you know, occasionally, when you're not thinking about what you need to do, all this other stuff that pops up on your TV screen or your computer screen or your phone screen takes over your day, and it starts to distract you, and it takes away from your plan. You got to have that plan in place. Now, sometimes you have a plan, but you haven't run it by anybody, and your plan doesn't work out. And I'll pick on myself for a minute. When I got married, I guess we're at 14 and a half years right now. When I was leading up to getting married, I wanted to get engaged, but I didn't know what ring size my bride-to-be was. And I couldn't figure out how to figure it out, you know. And around Thanksgiving that year, I had her trace her hand on a piece of paper and make me a turkey hand drawing. Y'all remember those turkey hand drawings? I had her make me one, and I took it down to the jewelry store for those after Thanksgiving Day sales. And I put it up on that countertop. And that guy looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. Are you going to marry Sasquatch or what? That's a huge hand. I said, that's kind of rude. He said, that's a big old hand. Is she in the bowling league or anything? I said, listen, buddy. I said, I'm trying to get a game plan together because I got to propose to her. I want to propose to her, but I don't know what ring size she is. Can't you just ballpark it from the turkey hand drawing? He said, do you even listen to the words that come out of your head? Yeah, you got me there. I said, well, you must know some secrets because you're in the business. He goes, I got the easiest thing, buddy. He said, how often do you go see this girl? I said, well, I travel a lot, but maybe once or twice a week I might slide by and go see a movie or something. He goes, well, next time you go pick her up, if she's not looking, slide into her room when she's not looking, grab a different ring off her dresser she don't wear a lot, and bring it down here as quick as you can. I'll size it up for you. So I thought, well, as long as I don't get arrested for theft, I'll be all right. But I did that. She didn't even notice. You know, next day I took it down to the jewelry store, and he had that piece of rebar in the back. You know what I'm talking about? Ring bar. I don't know what they call it, but it's got the numbers and the grooves on it. He slid it up on there good, and I said, listen, give me an engagement ring and a wedding band and 2 separate receipts. Because, you know, if she said no, she had a pretty sister. So I'm just saying. Well, they got some good hunting property, too. But anyhow, I did it for love, y'all. So I had that ring burning a hole in my pocket all the way from the 26th of November to December 25. And I'm down visiting her family in Arkansas, and I'm like, I'm going to propose right now, you know. And I get down, propose to her, and I had gotten a toe ring by accident off of that dresser top. Yeah, it's funny now, ain't it? It's funny. You ever seen a princess cut toe ring? She didn't complain. She just put on a flip-flop and hobbled on down the aisle. Let's go. Do you take this man? I reckon. Sometimes you don't have a good plan. I didn't run it by anybody. But she's from Arkansas, so that flip-flop was an upgrade at the last minute, you know. Now, doesn't make anybody mad? Anybody from Arkansas? No, they don't travel much. Say what you want about Arkansas. It's some of it's pretty. I mean, from Memphis to Little Rock, there ain't nothing, is there? There's nothing but trucks trying to kill you. But you get out there, beyond, it's just laid back. You know, it's like American Jamaica. There ain't no hurry to do nothing. It's just like take your time, and you turn on news talk radio, just a guy whistling because there ain't squat going on down in Arkansas. It's true. If he's humming, that's a commercial right there. Yeah. So we need to make a plan, right? Now, the key to having a plan is knowing what's worth time and what's not worth your time. And I've been studying up on all these different guys, you know, the past couple of years learning about this stuff. And one of my favorite guys to learn from is Tim Ferriss. Do y'all know Tim Ferriss? Does that name ring a bell to anybody? Everybody should look this guy up. He's got a podcast if you're into that kind of stuff. Tim, Ferriss, I believe. He wrote a book a while back called The 4-Hour Work Week. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Okay. So he started a business in Middle Tennessee, basically a warehouse shipping business, kind of like Amazon. Started this maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And he was working 85 hours a week. I mean, he was just at the edge of his existence, you know. So he had to get the thing up and running, and then every time there was a little problem, he had to go there and solve it and figure it out. And after a point, he realized it's just insanity. He can't keep doing this. So what he started doing was calling people up, you know, kind of delegating the authority like we talked in the last section, and devising plans to get some stuff off of his plate and to empower the people that he works with. And boy, not only did they love that, because every worker who's been at a place for a while likes the challenge of moving up, but sometimes he found they did things quicker and more effectively than he did. And he realized, too, that that was one of his fears the whole time. Like, he was afraid of delegating authority to somebody because he thought, what if they do it better than me? It's going to make me look bad and I'm the CEO of the company. Well, it makes you look great if you find people that can do things better than you can do it, because it speeds up everything, frees up some time, eliminates some of those distractions, and you start getting some of that $650 million back, you know. So he did that. His first thing was said, hey, if you can solve this problem for $50, if there's a customer complaint, we can fix it for $50. Do you do that? At the end of the week, make a little report, and I'll check that and see if I agreed with what you did. Pretty quickly, he said, hey, if you can fix it for $100, I'm with you. You're doing a great job. If you can fix it for $200, boom. He got to where he didn't have to get involved with anything unless it was like a $500 or more up problem. And by the end of a couple of months, he got that little part of his business under control. By the end of a year, he got his whole work week down to 4 hours a week, because he empowered all his employees to take on the business and have their, you know, they were vested in it, and they did a better job, and they found quicker ways to do things. So he's starting to get his time back, a lot of it. Then he went on to start other companies. He's had a TV show that's been on, I think, maybe one of those odd networks like the Spike Network or True TV or something. But he'll take on a new occupation for a month, and in that month he discovers what's the most important aspect of that job, and he gets really good at it. He's taken on being a chef. He's got a book called The 4-Hour Chef, I think it's called. He learned how to play drums with like Aerosmith or somebody within a week. Never played drums before. Learned the most important parts of the song that people would hear and resonate with. So he basically applied the 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle. Y'all know that, or maybe it's something I forgot after college, but I learned while I was doing this. And basically what that says is 20% of your focused effort, like if you just went in for a couple hours a day and really focused, you could generate 80% of your results for the day. If you're able just to close the door and do what you wanted to do, without the interruptions, without the emails coming in, the phone calls, all that kind of stuff. And so the key when you have a plan is knowing what that most important 20% is. You know, if you are one of the people in the job that can only do something, or you do it better than everybody else, you want to definitely focus on that. Another thing he discovered was we all have zone times. Like some people are morning people. Who's morning people? There's a few. How about the afternoon people? After lunch, got your coffee going. Then night owls, people get stuff. You know, I'm with kids and with the way I'm a little bit of all three, but I'm never 8 hours in a row. None of us are. So knowing that 3 or 4 hours at work where you're the most primed to be productive is where you slot that most important 20% of your day. And that's when you tell everybody else no. I mean, it's hard to set boundaries. There's books on boundaries. You have to maybe do a little research, but until you say no, this is the time I have dedicated to this job, people will always walk in. They're always going to call. They're always going to email. One guy told me his way to make that not happen anymore was whenever somebody walked in his office, they say, hey, you got a minute? He goes, oh, yeah, I'm really busy right now. I need your help. Could you help me with this? And they're right back out the door. You know. So find those little times throughout the day where you're super focused is super important, but also just setting that boundary, not letting people interrupt. It's not always easy, and sometimes it takes a while for people to get used to, so letting them know a little ahead of time that this is going to be the plan going forward is important. But until you set those boundaries, don't expect people to recognize them. They're just not there. It's very tricky to do. All right. I'm going to ask one trivia question really quick before I move on to the next section, because I'd like to find out who my true Mayberry fans are. So this is the hardest trivia question I have, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody here gets it because you guys are pretty sharp. Does anybody know what Barney Fife got his parents for an anniversary gift? Look at that. Raise your hand. There was 3 or 4. I want to tell you how impressive. I give this speech all over the country, probably 30 times a year the past 3 years. Only 4 people have got that out of all those times. And you had 3 or 4 right in a row back here. So, hey, on the way out today, grab me in the hallway. I've got some of my CDs I want to give to you. And you can, it's a full comedy CD, no talking or preaching in the middle, or none of this learning, but just straight ahead fun. I'll give him more round of applause. That's pretty good. Septic tank. Septic tank. Now, bonus question. Do you remember why he said he got it for him? Boom. How about that? Well, they always take stuff back. They're just hard to buy for. You guys are good. That's what I like about Tennessee. We know our Andy Griffith Show, don't we? Man, if that's the hardest one, he's going to get the other ones real easy later. Okay, so a few things we've learned so far today is a lot of distractions. We can control those distractions by kind of putting them in a time slot in our day, scheduling things that we know we're going to be distracted by, and we can get some of that time back and some of that $650 billion. I don't know what my slice of that is, but I'd like to get a little bit more of that back, and I'm sure you guys would like to as well. When it comes to delegating authority, you need to find some people that can handle the task, but also are willing to take on that task. That's going to benefit you and them much better. And then having a plan is important, because if you don't have a plan, actually somebody told me this recently, I think I've maybe even heard it on a Dave Ramsey episode. He said, failing to plan is planning to fail. Sounds like something my dad would tweet out, to be honest with you. But it's really true. You know, one of my favorite shows to watch on TV when I'm not watching the Andy Griffith Show is American Pickers. Anybody ever watch the Picker Show? And I like it. It's just my way of chilling out at the end of the night. There's really nothing flashy about it. I can kind of relax, and usually I nod off when Frank starts talking about oil cans. But, you know. But on almost every episode, they go in an old barn, and they pull back a big old blanket, and what do they find? An old car. An old car that's been there since the, 50s, 60s. And this thing, what does the owner of that car always say about that car? I'm going to fix it up when? One day. When you do not have a deadline, things do not get done. One day is not on the calendar anywhere, right? No. I mean, you got the first day, but it ain't the one day. Because if it was, we'd all be done with everything by now. Every episode, somebody said, well, we're going to fix it one day, and the guy's too old to get underneath the hood now to fix it, right? So having that deadline is super important. If you don't have it, it's not going to get done, and it's going to backfire on you. So those things are super important. Sometimes you don't even know that you have an important task until somebody else points it out. Like, you may not realize how important you are to your group until somebody kind of identifies one thing. So one thing you should always do is occasionally ask your coworkers or anybody else in the group, what do you think I'm actually good at? What's the one thing, if I was the only person in the office to do it, you would give to me? It may be something that's to your strengths, but you don't even realize what your strengths are. And it can be little things, too, that are huge. Some people don't realize your strength is simply encouragement. Like, encouragement might be one of the biggest strengths there are, and people undervalue that because they don't see a dollar attached to it. You might be the person that has the most hospitality in your office or your group, and that's the thing you bring to it more than others. So those things are important to be recognized as well. Sometimes, in home, you need to ask your spouse, what could I be doing better? What am I not doing right? Sometimes your spouse will just flat out tell you, I've got a wife she lets me know. Now I saw this the other day. It's one of my favorite things I've heard in the past 2 weeks is you don't have to tell a man to do something more than once. Every 6 months is fine. So that's right. Not every day. We're never going to get to it. But here's something that came up in my life. I guess it was back around Christmas time. It was one of the nicest Christmas we ever had. We had everybody come down here instead of us going all Arkansas or Kentucky. And after everybody went to bed, me and my wife were just sitting there. And we're just talking. I said, that was a pretty good year, wasn't it? She said, yeah, it was pretty good. I said, is there anything, at the end of the year you want to tell me before we get into this next year? And she said, well, there's one thing I've been thinking. I said, what? She goes, I would love for you to communicate a little bit more clearly. She said, I'm not a mind reader. Sometimes I think you're trying to make me figure something out when you can just tell me. And I'd be on board with that. I said, well, all right. I didn't know exactly what that meant. But then around Valentine's Day, it dawned on me. Here's a chance to communicate. I said, honey, we've been married for 14 years. I've been together with you for 18. I'm out of ideas of stuff I can get you for Valentine's Day. I said, I've surprised you, I think, sometimes disappointed you even with the surprise. But I'm out of ideas. If there's something I can get you I haven't thought about. That's pretty good communicating, ain't it, fellas? I mean, I wasn't just talking, I was communicating. I could feel it, And she said, well, I know Valentine's Day stresses you out, so this year for Valentine's Day, why don't we do this? Instead of exchanging gifts to each other, why don't we exchange ideas to each other on a piece of paper instead? I said, now I'm lost. He said, no, it's real easy. I'm going to write down a couple of things you could do better around the house you're not doing, and you write down a couple of things about me. I'm like, no. I'm like, stop right there, right? That's just a trap door and an escalator. That's what that is. That's right. That's when you do some bud nipping right there. Well, here's how dumb I am. when she said write stuff down on a piece of paper, I started thinking, I don't have to go shopping. It ain't going to cost me a nickel. I said, sign me up. Yeah, 5 steps down the hallway, I'm a dead man walking. Like, this could cost me the house. So I had a couple of weeks to figure out what I could tell my wife she was not doing right that she could do better. Fellas, could you think of something to tell your wife she was doing wrong around her house? No. And if something popped in your mind, would you write it down on a piece of paper? That's going to be used as evidence against you in a court of law. So I was trying, but I really couldn't find nothing. I got really lucky. My wife is above and beyond what I deserve for sure. She, on the other hand, was shredding documents trying to get her list down to 1 page on stuff I could do better. So we go out to eat for Valentine's Day night, which is the worst night of the year to go out to eat. You ever been in that mess? I mean, I live in Mount Juliet. Everything got crowded, by 5 o'clock. There's a line out the door. So we're waiting for our food, and I said, honey, while we're waiting, just tell me, what am I not doing right? She goes, well, here's the big thing. If I ask you to fix something around the house, could you do it the same year that I asked you to do it? I'm like, well, give me an example. She said, I'll ask you to change a light bulb that burns out in the light fixture. You wait till every light bulb in the fixture burns out. Then you get out of the ladder and change them all at once. I said, that's why they got the extra light bulbs. I did not say that, but I was thinking it. I live in her house. I said, well, I thought I was pretty good, but if I don't do it the same day, don't let me leave the house till I take care of it, or I call somebody. Call the man. Let him fix it, right? She said, all right, I'll get on you about it. She said, what about me? I'm like, honey, even if I could think of something, I don't think I'd say it. She's like, you're a big old chicken. I said, well, I did have one thing. I said, I said, it's nothing mean, but, before we had our kids, if I was home on the weekend and she had traveled for her job back then too, I said, you would make me this big old surprise breakfast. I mean, it was like Cracker Barrel in the house. And I said, it was good. I said, but I know it's hard to pull off with the kids and their schedules and all that stuff. We're pretty whooped, but man, I missed that big old breakfast. And I looked back across the table, and she had started tearing up and crying right there at the Hardee's. I know. You're not judging me right now, are you? You get that thick burger meal, that's $13.95 a couple. Well, everything else was sold out. There's a waiting line, so no line at Hardee's. So, she was really crying, though. I mean, and like weird tears, crocodile tears coming out sideways and all. I'm like, I said, I didn't mean to upset you. That was a compliment. Fellas, then she said this, oh, that's what a compliment sounds like. I said, what do you mean? She goes, the whole time I was waking up on my day off to make your breakfast for you, you never once told me you liked it or that it was good. I thought I wasn't doing it like your mama, so I just quit. Oh, man. Then I started tearing up and crying. Thinking about all them years of Fruity Pebbles and Pop-Tarts I've been shoveling down. I could have had me some ham and eggs for a thank you, ma'am. I said, just so you know, you can never ruin my breakfast. If you burn the bacon, that's the way I like it right there. She said, well, maybe one day I'll make you breakfast again. I'm like, all right. Well, fellas, the very next day, February 16, I wake up at 6 a.m. I smell maple syrup and pancakes, and I run downstairs, and she had bought a candle somewhere. Laugh it up, laugh it up. You ever been hungry and mad at 6 a.m.? I hit the bottom step. My little boy had the camcorder. Like, Papa, she got you good. I'm like, honey, what's going on with this candle? It's like, oh, I had to use it. The last light bulb burned out this morning. She got me twice. So, here's what I learned from that whole lesson, right? That was back in February. Now, once a month, we meet up at the same Hardee's on Lebanon Road. And I say, is there something I'm not doing right around the house I could do better? Because in honesty, what if we had never talked about that back on Christmas? How long was she going to put up with me not doing stuff right around the house before she was just gone, you know? Then I'd be calling her sister. But no, I'm just kidding about that. Just kidding about that. She don't even have a sister. I made that up. But in honesty, you know, in our job sometimes we're not asking, is there something else I could be doing? You know, in a lot of jobs, a lot of actual businesses have disappeared because they didn't ask that question. I mean, back when I was growing up in the late 80s and 90s and stuff, if you wanted to go get a movie, where'd you go to get a movie? Where's Blockbuster today? They're gone. There's one left in the entire United States. One guy owns one. But because they didn't take care of their customers. I mean, the rental was one thing, but where did they make most of their money at? People still mad about it. That's right. Yeah, if you didn't rewind it or you had a late fee, it cost you more money. If you had accidentally forgot it and gone on vacation and come back 2 weeks later, you could have hired the cast of the movie to recreate it right there. It would have been cheaper. It used to be when you landed somewhere, you could rent a car or call a taxi, but what do people do now? Because what were taxis doing? They were gouging you. They weren't clean sometimes. They didn't show up when they're supposed to. They took the long way. But now Uber has the app. It shows the way. You can see if they veer off the path. You can take a screenshot of the Uber driver's license plate. I text that to my wife so she knows if I don't show up tomorrow, this is the guy that got me right here. Right? I live out in Wilson County. We don't have Uber. We got Goober. He'll pick you up in a truck, you know. Lots of companies. You think about, you know, back in the old days, and even to some degree today, your only option for software was Microsoft, right? But now Mac has a lot of stuff, and Google has everything you can do on Microsoft for free up in the cloud if you want to keep it there. So asking the people you already serve, what else can I do for you, is going to clue you into what they might be going to somebody else to get done, you know. I live out, like I say, in Mount Juliet. I went to Jiffy Lube there on Lebanon Road this past summer. I'd like to change the oil myself, but I was pretty busy, and I thought, well, I'll just go in here and pay the $25, you know. Well, I pull up, there's a bunch of high school kids, and they're doing their summer job. They got the door open halfway. They look out and see me, then they look right back to their devices. They're right back there doing their texting or whatever. And I start the clock. I just look at the clock. I'm like, all right, how long is this going to take? And I look back. They look back. They're not even letting me in. While I'm waiting, I get on Facebook, and I say, I'd like to get an oil change today. Anybody got an idea where I can go? Within 5 minutes, people started sending me Groupons of places I can go get an oil change for half off. I got it done at the Firestone down the street a few minutes later for $12.95. But 15 minutes later, when the guy let me come in the garage, he said, hey, what can we do for you today? I'm like, well, you could have done something for me 15 minutes ago, you know. But I luckily have this thing here on my phone, and I got a better deal down the street. So, you know, I'm not your boss, and obviously your boss is not here, but if y'all want this summer job next year, you might want to get something done, you know. I could have easily blasted them out and taken a picture. I'm not that kind of guy, but how many times are we doing something where other people are watching, you know? We do it great. Sometimes they'll tweet it out, and we get some business that way. But, you know, 10 to 1, they're going to tweet out a negative experience. And studies show it takes 12 positive experiences to erase one negative one. So all those things come into play when you're trying to take care of business. So I'm just going to wrap up today with this thought for you. Sometimes you're doing all the right things. You're doing the best you can. And no matter what you do, it still backfires occasionally. You know, I was driving across Kansas this past summer. You ever drive across Kansas? Any survivors? Yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be flat. I didn't know you had to bring your own people to talk to. I'm driving. This guy goes flying by me in a Trans Am. I don't know he's an unmarked highway patrolman in a Trans Am. He's just a blur. And I start trying to catch up to that guy. I think he's got a radar detector in there somewhere. He had the radar, and I didn't detect it, apparently. So I start trying to catch up to him. It took me forever because I still have my 1996 3 out of 4 cylinder Isuzu pickup truck. I get pretty close. He started slowing down. Then he sped back up. I'm like, what? Slowed back down. Sped back. Then he started switching lanes, swerving. I'm like, this guy has fallen asleep behind the wheel. I got to get his attention. Yeah. Apparently, he was trying to get behind me to pull me over for speeding the whole time, but I didn't know. So I'm trying to pull him over thinking I'm doing the right thing. And I'm in my 3-cylinder with the one headlight. I should have fixed the other one when my wife told me. I'm flashing the one good high beam at him, you know, roll down the window. Woo! Whoop, whoop. That's pretty good, ain't it? I must have swallowed 13 skeeters before he pulled over. He gets out, you know, he pulls over. He doesn't get out of his car. I get out of my truck, walk up to his window. I just start pounding on his window. Meanwhile, he's been loading his revolver on the other side. Yeah. Then he cracks the window, and I see who he is, and I got zero game plan. But I started thinking maybe I should try to arrest him for reckless driving before he gets me for speed. Do a little Barney Fife on him, you know, just walked up there. I'm like, hey! Did I just lose my... There we go. Oh, wait. Okay, that's what that was. I'm like, hey! Would you mind rolling down the window? You want to get out of the vehicle there, buddy? You're a big one, too, aren't you? Look at you. Want to know why I pulled you over? Because I'm an idiot. Whoa. I thought I was going to prison right there. He's like, you're so weird, I'll drop you off wherever you want to go. He throws me in that squad car, and he gets out and gets on his little shoulder CB, and 5 minutes later, 6 more popo roll up. I hadn't seen 6 people in Kansas in 5 days. All of a sudden, we got a party. He gets back in. He's like, first off, who pulled over who? I'm like, sir, I know this is weird, but the way you were swerving around up there, I thought you'd fallen asleep behind the wheel or something. He said, swerving? No, I was trying to get you for speeding. You know how fast you were going back there? I said, honestly, I don't. My speedometer's broke. He said, I was pacing you at 114 miles an hour. What do you got to say about that? I mean, I'd say what you would say. I was like, that's pretty good in a 3 out of 4 cylinder Isuzu pickup truck. I say print that out. That's going to help me with my trade-in value right there, ain't it? He said, what brings you out here to Kansas in the first place? I see you got Tennessee license plates. And on that trip, I was just going to do my comedy show, you know, at a fundraiser in Wichita, so that's what I told him. And he said, you do comedy? I said, yeah. He goes, well, you must not do it very well. I don't recognize your name at all. I said, you ever been on Letterman or Leno or something like that? And what do you say? I'm like, nah. You ever been on Cops? Oh. You ever meet somebody with no sense of humor? Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the afternoon. I hope you picked up a few tips here and there, which you can focus on, get some of that productivity back in your life and more results in the workplace. My name's Rick Roberts. Thanks a lot for putting up with me. Have a good one.